Hello.
And welcome
Back
to
Steven Shows Myah Movies.
I was ready to say words.
The podcast title that explains itself.
Yes.
So today we are going to be talking about Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
And I saw it for the first time today, and it was extremely dumb.
Yep. And then it got dumber.
And then it got even more dumb.
Hence the title. Just like this show, you know exactly what you're going to get from the title.
Yeah. And so it stars Jim Carrey and
Jeff Daniels.
And the one thing that I just couldn't stop seeing this entire movie was what was his name?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels' horrible haircut. His hair was so bad the entire time. I mean, Jim Carrey's hair was also really bad, but, not the same level of bad. Like, this guy had flyaways for days. And, it was like a melon hair, kind of.
Kind of like a shaggy dog.
Yeah.
Which is fitting because of the car he drives.
Which is the shaggy dog van. But basically, the story starts out with, Jim Carrey's character, which is...
Lloyd.
It's
Lloyd.
His name is Lloyd.
But there's two L's, so it's Lloyd.
He's a chauffeur, and he's, ringing... Oh, no. It starts out with him, Wait, actually, why does it start out like that?
Just to show that he's an idiot.
Okay, so basically the first scene is, him in the back of the limo, and it rolls down, and he's, asking this girl where the hospital is, because he's, gonna give a lecture there, and then... what even happens?
The only reason he stops is because he wants to talk to a pretty girl.
Oh, that's why. I was actually confused why he did that. I was like, does he, not know where to go? Anyway.
I mean, maybe.
I thought he was, genuinely asking for directions. I mean, that would fit. But anyway, he's a chauffeur, a limousine driver, and he picks up, I guess this girl ordered his services, and he picks up this girl, and he rings the doorbell, and he opens the door.
He doesn't ring the doorbell. He smacks on the door thing.
Oh, right. And then she answers, and then when he sees her for the first time, he's like, oh. He's, in love with her immediately.
Love struck.
And he's driving her to the airport, and he's like, oh, are you flying somewhere? And she's like, he's like, I see you're going to the airport. You going somewhere? And she's like, how did you know? And then he was like, well, I put two and two together. I saw your bags and, the ticket. I figured you must be going somewhere. And that is, that joke alone, you can kind of tell what kind of movie this is.
Mm-hmm. Right up my alley.
Yeah. And she's kind of like, huh? But she just ignores it. And he's, talking to her. He's like, oh, yeah, me and my best friend are trying to save up money to, buy a pet store or own our own pet store. And, we're going to call it I Have Worms.
We got worms. And it's going to specialize in selling worm farms. What the heck? And then she's like, okay, cool. And the whole time he's telling her this, he's literally driving, through red lights because he's turned around looking at her and his eyes are not on the road. And he says, most people die on their way to the airport and not in an actual plane crash.
Yeah, and then she was like, can you, keep your eyes on the road? And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. And then, so they arrive at the airport, and she's, getting her stuff. And he's, I guess, seeing her off, but he wants a hug. It's really awkward because she doesn't know him. But he's, acting like they're in love or something. And then she leaves. And, there's, this weird underlying plot line to this movie. Mm-hmm. There's some
Which I've never really thought about before.
I guess you never noticed it, but,
no.
I was trying to follow along with the story, which is, an unusual story. But basically, the overarching premise of the story is the girl that Jim Carrey likes, or Lloyd likes, her husband is being held, captive, and she is paying a ransom to these people for him to be freed. Mm-hmm. That's the overarching underlying plot in the movie, and it's kind of weird. But basically, she has this money in a suitcase, and she's supposed to go to the airport. She's going to Aspen, and leave the suitcase in a drop-off location, and these two thugs, I guess, will pick up the ransom money, and then her husband will go free, basically. But
what happens? He probably wouldn't go free though.
Yeah, but what happens instead is she puts the luggage down at the drop-off point and walks off to her flight. And then Jim Carrey, Lloyd, he sees from the limo, and he crashes the limo and gets out and runs to get her suitcase right before the thugs can get the suitcase. And he's trying to return it to her, so he's trying to find the flight. And he's he gets to the flight deck, he's running,
the airplane attendant is like taking off like the sign and changing it to like the next flight, and he like runs past him, and he's like, but the flight attendant's like, no, you can't go, and then he's like, no, I'm a limousine driver, and pulls out his badge, like it's like, or his
Like
license, like it's like an FBI badge, but it's just like he's just a limo driver, and then he runs right off into like the airplane road.
He runs off the jetway.
Yeah, he runs right off into the jetway because there's no plane attached to like the little thing.
Because it's already left.
Yeah, and so he has a briefcase and he goes back to his like apartment.
Also, it leaves quite quickly.
Yeah, I know. Planes, like, she must have been very late to her flight.
Well,
or like
Lloyd was taking her to the airport, so.
True. Or she must have been like right at her boarding time. But even then, they still like marinate at the jetway.
Marinate.
Like, yeah, they like chill there for a while. But anyway.
It's like
so then
food.
he has her briefcase and he's like, he goes home, and then we meet his best friend's character, who's like the best friend character. What's his name?
Harry.
Sam? Oh, Harry.
Sam.
I don't know. Harry. And Harry, like, grooms dogs for a living, and he just got fired from his job because he was, like, driving the dogs to the show, but he took, like, a 40-minute detour to get the dogs food because he doesn't want them to perform on an empty stomach. Mm-hmm. But then, in doing so, like...
He has to drive all crazy to get to the show.
And then when they open the doors to get the dogs, they're, like, covered in mustard and ketchup, so he gets fired. And then, so Lloyd comes home and he sees Harry, and Harry's like, I've had such a bad day. And then Harry's like, yeah, I just got fired. And then Lloyd's like, yeah, me too. And then they're like, you're such a loser because you got fired, haha. And then their apartment is like run down, a mess. There's literally like a dog grooming station in the middle of their living room. And it's just gross. There's like one couch and like one like
and
armchair.
that couch doesn't have a leg on one side, so it's slanted.
Yeah, and so they're living in not the best conditions, and they're kind of like broke.
And there's a bunch of like a worm thing in the middle as well.
Yeah, it's
in the living
gross.
room.
And so
Disgusting.
There's like a knock on the door, and then they look through the people and they see like the two thugs. One of them has a gun, and they're like, "Who could these guys be?" And then Lloyd's like, "Wait, Harry, did you pay the gas bill?" And then Harry's like, no." And then they're like, "Okay, we gotta go." So then they dip, and the thugs, but they bring the briefcase with them.
Yeah.
And then the thugs break in, and they're like, oh no, suitcase is not here. Like, who are these guys? They must be good. Or something like... And then they're talking, and the man thug, he's like, should I, like, trash the place to send him a message? And then the girl thug is like, I don't think they're gonna get the message. This place is already, like, a dump.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, I know what I'll do. And then there's, like, Harry has a parakeet, so the thug goes and, like, kills the parakeet by, like, decapitating it, I guess, or like breaking the neck or something. And then they leave, and then they come back. The Lloyd and Harry come back, and they see the place. And then Lloyd's like, "Oh my God, my bird is dead." And then Lloyd's like, "How did it die?" And then Harry's like, "Its head fell off. It was really old." And then Lloyd
really
was
old,
like,
so I was
"Oh, that's so sad." And they literally have no idea that the bird was murdered. They just think that the bird just died because it was old. And then they're like talking. They're like broke. Lloyd like just got robbed by like a granny, and his wallet got stuck in like a porn magazine station. So then they're both like, we need to leave. We need to go somewhere.
We need to start a new life. Get out of here.
And then Harry's like, where are we going to go? And then Lloyd's like, Aspen. And then Harry's like, okay, wait a second. You're trying to get a girl, aren't you? And then he's like, yeah, I'm just... And then there's this heartwarming speech. And then, like, Harry's like, I don't want to go just because you're chasing a girl. And then Lloyd's like, well, I just don't want to be alone anymore. Like, this heartwarming speech. And then they're like, okay. And then they get into...
And Lloyd starts crying on Harry's shoulder.
Yeah.
He's like, cry it out, man. Cry it out. 3 seconds later. Okay, that's enough.
Yeah. And so they get into the dog van, and then they drive across the country to Colorado, to Aspen, and hijinks
Also, they
ensues.
think that Aspen is California.
Yeah, they're dumb. But, so basically, the thugs see them leave, I guess, and then they follow them across the country. So hijinks ensues while the thugs are trying to figure out who these guys are. They think that they're, like, specially trained or something, like they've been watching them, or they're, like, feds. I guess they think they're feds.
Yeah.
But so they're trying to figure out who they are and get the briefcase back, and then these idiots are just trying to like go to Aspen and return the briefcase because they like he likes the girl.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happens is they stop at like a diner, or what? I don't even know what happens actually.
Well, they're driving along, and Lloyd has some like a little snack thing, and Harry's like, "What, Lloyd? Where'd you get that? We have a very tight budget that we can only spend on specific things." And Lloyd goes, "Oh, no, don't worry. It wasn't out of the budget. I sold some stuff." And Harry asks, "What stuff?" "Oh, you know, baseball cards, other things." Petey.
Which is the dead parakeet.
Yeah. And he sells it to a blind kid.
And then Harry's like, well, what about the head situation? And then
I took care of it.
Well, it's like, I took care of it. And then it cuts to a shot of the blind kid, like, petting the parakeet with its head taped on. And it's really cool.
Pretty bird.
Yeah, she's like, pretty bird, Polly want a cracker? And there's just silence. So, yeah. And then they're getting on the road, and they stop at a diner, and they're, like, being annoying and, like, joking around, and they, like, mess around with the waitress or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Harry knocks over a salt shaker, and then Lloyd's like, that's bad luck, you need to throw salt over your shoulder to cancel it out. And so Harry then takes a salt shaker and throws it over his shoulder, and it hits like this
entire thing.
Yeah, he takes the whole shaker, not just like salt. And it hits like this trucker on the back of the head, and this trucker's like big burly guy. And he's like, who did that? And then Lloyd literally just points at Harry, and he's like, him.
Yeah, you know, what you would do when you're 5 and you did something bad.
Exactly.
It was him. He did it. Over there.
Yeah. And then, so the trucker goes over to Harry and then basically spits in his burger and takes it. Mm-hmm. And
Well, not just normal spit.
Yeah, I didn't watch this
nasally.
scene. I didn't watch this scene because it was too gross. I couldn't handle it.
It was. But yeah, for some reason you're fine with Halloween. Anyway, let's continue.
Gore I can do. Spit, no. And then Lloyd's like, oh, well, listen, follow my lead. Like, I'll show you what to do. And they go over the trucker table, and then Lloyd's like, oh, like, hey, like, we just wanted to apologize, so, like, we'll buy you around on us. Mm-hmm. And then the trucker guy's like, okay. And then they go up to, like, the diner checkout lady, and they're like, oh, that guy says he's gonna pay for our bill. And then the diner lady's like, him? Are you sure? And then they all turn to look at him, and then the trucker guy's like waving. He's like, like,
he points to
right
himself.
here, like,
yeah.
This is where this is where the beers are gonna go. And then but to the diner lady, it's like a confirmation that he's gonna pay the tab. So then he does. She's like, okay, and then they leave, but not before Harry grabs like all these candy bars and is like, put it on their tab. So then they escape, and then they're like laughing about it, and Harry's like, oh my god, how did you know about that? Like, how to pull a scheme like that? And then Lloyd's like, I watched it in a movie. And then Harry's like, oh, they got away scot-free, huh? And then he's like, nope. Like 5 minutes later, the guy's caught up with him and slit the character's throat. And then Harry's like, oh. And then
immediately after.
And then they're driving, and then Lloyd's like, oh, I really have to pee. And then Harry's like, I'm not stopping. Like, those guys can catch up to us. So then he gives him like an empty beer bottle to pee in, but like it's not enough. So he keeps filling bottles of beer and passing them off to Harry to hold while he's driving. And then he's, like, speeding because he doesn't want to get caught by the guys. Mm-hmm. And then, like, a cop sees that. And so he drives up next to the car, and he's like, oh, he sees Harry with, like, 4 bottles of beer in his hand, driving on the steering wheel, speeding. And he's like, oh, hey, pull over. And then Harry's like, oh, no, it's a cardigan. Thanks for noticing. And then the police officer's like, no, pull over to the side of the road. And they pull over to the side of the road. Here, like, the police officer's like, oh, you're speeding. You're going really fast. Like, were you drinking? And then they're like, no. The officer's like, what is that over there? And he points to, like, the beer bottles. And they're like, oh, nothing. And then the police officer's like, give it here. And then, so they passed him, like, a bottle filled with pee. And then the officer's like, takes a sip of it. And then he swallows it. And then he knows that it's P, and then he just tells them to leave.
Just get out of here.
And then they just they escape, and then they keep driving. I love like a second. It's called the Second Honeymoon Motel or something like that.
Yeah.
It's basically like where people go to hook up. And so they get a room, and then like it cuts to the next scene where they're both like in the hot tub drinking beer, and then like Lloyd has his ear to the wall listening to like this couple like having sex, and he's like, "This is the best thing ever." He's like, "Hot tub, a cold beer, and paper thin walls." And then there's like this really weird scene that happens. It's so uncomfortable. I hated it. It was like
Lloyd gets a bit too overzealous.
Yeah, Lloyd's like, the only thing that I could want is if you had some knockers. And then Harry's like, oh, weird.
Excuse me?
And then Lloyd's like, yeah, like, I'd rail you if you had knockers. And then Lloyd's like, okay. Or Harry's like, okay. And then Lloyd's like, yeah, and you'd like it too. And then he calls him like, you homo. And then like Harry's like, what the heck? And it was a really awkward scene. Like I was so uncomfortable watching it. I was like, what the fuck? And then he just goes back to listening to the couple have sex, and it's so awkward.
I think that scene is actually part of the extended version, because we watched the extended version, which has a couple additional scenes in it, like in the diner where Harry goes, "Hey, this drink doesn't have bubbles in it," and she blows bubbles in it. That wasn't in the original theatrical version.
Oh, so it might have been an extra.
Maybe.
Oh, well, I didn't know we watched the extended version.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was so uncomfortable. And then after that, like, Harry's like, yeah, like, this isn't the best because, like, it reminds me of that girl, this girl I used to date. We went to a place like this.
You know, it's classy.
He's like, classy. And then he's like, yeah, she's the love of my life, and we loved her. And then a week later, she broke up with me. They only dated for a week. That was the implication. And then he's like, yeah, she broke up with me because she said I didn't listen to her. But I don't know what she was even talking about. I wasn't paying attention. But I know there was some other guy involved. And then it cuts to like Lloyd, and Lloyd's like, looks really guilty, and he just like kind of sinks down into the water. And obviously Lloyd was the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it cuts to like the two thugs outside, and they're like, oh yeah, they're talking on the payphone. They're like, yeah, we don't know who these guys are, but they're good, or something like that. I don't even know. Oh, and then we find out that the person that's holding, the girl, what's her name?
Mary.
The girl, Mary's husband for ransom is her father. No, her stepfather.
I don't know.
Or it's like some family member who's dating it, who's like
maybe brother.
No, but it's like the stepmom is like also an accomplice.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
It's weird. Anyway, so it's so weird.
Again, I didn't watch the movie for the story, just for the funny things.
Yeah, so we find out like who's the one that like the person behind it all, who's like holding her husband for ransom. Mm-hmm. And he's like, just get me the money, get me the briefcase. Apparently there's a lot of money in the briefcase because it's like ransom payment.
Yep.
And then there's this annoying guy like knocking on the window for the payphone, and the thug literally just punches through the glass his face, and then he collapses. Yep. Then what's the next scene? They're like on the road again or something?
Yeah, the thugs are ahead of Lloyd and Harry because they want the guy thug to be like a hitchhiker so that they can pick him up.
Oh yes, they have a scheme to like get picked up by Lloyd and Harry, and I guess he's gonna like get murder information about them.
He says you can't murder people you don't know.
Yeah, he's like, because the girl's like, why don't we just kill them? And he's like, no, rule number 1, you don't kill people you don't know. And then she also has like a weird phrase for something I've never heard this before. Basically, she's like, yeah, I'm gonna go squeeze a lemon, and she means pee. Yeah. And I've never heard squeeze a lemon before to reference peeing.
Me neither. So I mean, I guess I have from this movie, but I never thought about it.
Yeah, so that was weird. I've never heard that before, but interesting. Squeeze a lemon. I guess it makes sense because you're peeing. Anyway, so
what a great tangent. Anyway,
yeah. So the guy gets picked up by the two, and it's funny because like They pull up, and the guy's like, whoa. Lloyd's like, normally we don't pick up hitchhikers, but my gut feeling's telling me, like, we should pick you up. And it's like, you have a bad gut feeling. So then he comes in, and he sits right in between Lloyd and Harry.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Lloyd and Harry are, like, being annoying. They're like, tag, you're it, like, over the guy.
Uh-huh.
And then Lloyd's like, you want to hear the most annoying sound in the world? And then he goes like, rah, like that in his ear. And then and the guy's like, why don't we just turn on the radio? And then they're like, radio? Who needs a radio? And then they start singing. And then the guy's getting so fed up, he's literally about to pull out his gun and shoot them. Mm-hmm. But then they pull up to, like, these 5, like, other hitchhikers. Yeah. And they get in the van, and then he's like, look, more hitchhikers, add them in. And then they get into the van, and then they have, like, musical instruments with them, and then they're just performing this whole song. And then they pull up to this, like, restaurant that's, like, it basically, like, serves really hot food.
Yeah.
And they go there to eat, and then Lloyd is like, or Harry's like, I bet you won't eat this hot pepper. And then Lloyd's like, I bet you won't. And then they're like, well, you eat it first. And they're like, no, you eat it first. And then the guy gets so fed up, he's like, why don't you both just have it at the same time? Mm-hmm. And so they eat the hot peppers, and it's too hot for them. And there's this whole scene of, like, very physical humor where they're, like, spraying ketchup bottles into their mouths and, like, spitting. Mm-hmm. It's kind of nasty, actually.
Just screaming, too.
And then
everyone's looking.
I forget why the thug leaves, but he does.
He goes out to make a call to the ransom guy, like the friend of Mary or whoever.
Right, and then while he's gone, they're putting, like, the hot peppers in his burger. Mm-hmm. And then when he comes back, he sits down, and then he's kind of like, oh, like, why are you guys going to Aspen? And they're like, oh, we're here to return a briefcase to this girl. And they're like, yeah, we don't even know her, but we're trying to return it. And then the thug's literally laughing because he's like, that is literally not what he expected at all. And it's like, I guess he's like, oh, well, this is going to be, like,
easy peasy.
Easy. Because he was going to poison them.
Yep.
But
with rat poison.
But
in
then,
a little pill container.
So he's laughing and he's eating this burger with hot peppers, but then the hot peppers hit him, and then he, like,
instantly,
he's, like, sweating like crazy. Like, it's like he eats the hot pepper, it cuts, and then it cuts, like, right to his face, like, sweating. And so he's there, and he's, like, freaking out, and it's, like, so hot for him that he, like, falls over.
Yeah.
And then, like, starts, like, foaming at the mouth, kind of. And then
because he's got an ulcer somewhere, so it reacts with. That's why he's taking those pills at the beginning.
Oh, I was wondering what that was. I thought he was just taking drugs.
I mean, technically.
I mean, yeah. Anyway, so then he's like dying or something of heat and ulcers, and then Jim Carrey's like, or Lloyd's like, oh my god, I know CPR, and then he, like, pulls his legs back and forth.
In with the good, out with the bad. In with the good, out with the bad.
And then the guy, like, kicks him into the window, and then, like, the blinds get stuck in his leg, and he's, like, running. It's so weird. And then he's, like, trying to do mouth to mouth on a guy that's still conscious, and he's like, get off of me. And he's like, just give me my pills. I just need my pills. And then they go into his jacket to get his pills. And instead of getting his actual pills, they get the rat poison bottle and they feed it to him. And then he's like, oh, fuck. And then he dies. And then Lloyd's like, check please. And then they leave. And then, like, it turns out the FBI is called in to, like, figure out why this guy was killed.
Yeah.
Or I guess he's, like, a wanted criminal. So I guess they were like, oh. Mm-hmm. So then they investigate.
Oh, awesome.
And they're like, they were with these 2 guys. And then the guy's like, oh, what's the make of their vehicle?
It's an 84 sheepdog.
Because their car is, like a giant dog, basically. Like, so then they're driving, and they get to this gas station, and they're, like, filling up. And Lloyd's going to use the bathroom. And
yeah. Oh wait, no, we missed out the bit where he's having a hallucination.
Oh right, so they're driving for a long time, I guess, and he's, like, falling asleep on the road, and then he starts dreaming about what's gonna happen when he goes to Aspen to return the suitcase to the girl, and he has these, like, weird delusion, like, dreams that he wants to happen, where, like, one of them is, like, he returns the briefcase, and she's like, oh my gosh. And then in the next scene, he's wearing, like, a sweater with all these people, like, making these stupid ass jokes, and they're all laughing at him. And one of the jokes he makes is he literally lifts up his legs, puts a lighter under his like butt and it farts and it like flame throws. And then like everyone's like, ah ha ha, so funny. And then he throws like ashtray in his face, all these ashes, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And then like everybody's cackling, and in his dream like that's what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
And the next scene is like he's taking Mary out to dinner. And then there's like a kung fu battle that ensues, and then he like rips like out the chef's heart, puts it into go bag, and gives it to him, and the chef dies. And then the scene after that is like it's getting hot and heavy with Mary, and then like she's taking off her clothes, and then it like pans down to her boobs, but then her boobs are like lights, and then they're like traffic lights in real life, and he wakes up and he swerves because there's a truck coming towards him. But his like delusions were literally so weird. Anyway, so then they get to this gas station and they're filling up, and then Lloyd goes to use the bathroom, and Harry's left behind, and this girl pulls up, and he like talking to this girl. He's like, "Oh, like, are those your skis?" And she's like, "Yep." And he's like,
"Both of them?"
"Both of them." And she's like, "Yep." And then they start talking, and like he's getting distracted, so he's filling up the car, and then the car just overflowing with gasoline, so gasoline's just like pouring around. And she's like, "Oh, you're spilling." He's like, "Oh shit." And then I guess like they're talking, I guess she like finds him funny, and he's like, "Oh, well, like, would you like, I'll take you out for hot chocolate, like give me your number." And so she's like trying to give him her number, but his light or he lights her cigarette with matches, then throws the match down on the ground that's still lit, and his legs were soaked with gasoline, so his legs catch on fire. And so he's talking to this girl, he's trying to get her number, and she's like, "Oh, it's like this. She's like, "Oh wait, that's my old number." And he's like literally on fire, and he's like, "Just fucking tell me what the number is." And then she's like, "Well, if you're gonna be pushy about it," and then she drives off, and he's on fire. And then it cuts to Lloyd, he's in the bathroom, and he's like peeing.
And he's doing like rings in the bowl too.
Yeah. And then he's like reading
he's
like
a child.
He's reading like the graffiti on the wall, and one of them's like, "If you want sweet man love, be here at 2:15 a.m. And then Lloyd reads that, and he checks his watch, and it's 2:15. And then he just like, "Oh frick," and he just like locks the door and like tries hiding in the stall. And then we see these 2 feet under the stall, like boom, boom, and this guy trying to get in, and then he breaks it in, and it's the trucker from earlier. And then Lloyd's like, "What?" And the trucker guy's like,
"Hey, look, it's my buddy."
It's my buddy. And then what does he say? I forget. The punchline is,
Lloyd says, "I want to go home," or something. And then the trucker goes, "I'll show you a new home."
Yeah, and then he like grabs his junk.
Yeah.
And he pulls down his pants, and he has like a thong on. That's like cheetah print. Yeah. And then Harry runs into the bathroom and busts the door
with his
leg on fire, and busts the door down and like knocks out the trucker guy. Mm-hmm. And then Jim Carrey or Lloyd's like crouched in a fetal position on the ground, like sucking on his thumb. And Lloyd Harry sticks his lit leg on fire into the toilet bowl and like to extinguish it, but it's filled with pee. So that was really gross. And then the next scene is they're like in a car, and then like Lloyd's like, "I don't want to talk about it anymore." And then Harry's like, "Oh, don't be so sad. I'll let you kiss me, ha ha ha." And then it cuts to the scene of like the FBI, and they're like, "Yeah, like we're ahead of them. Like they're definitely coming down this way. We're gonna stop them." But then they switch drivers, and it turns out what's his name? Lloyd's driving now instead of Harry. And there's literally they drive up to this intersection, and there's a sign that's like, "Aspen this way.
Everywhere else
that way." And then Lloyd goes the wrong way. And he drives back like 6 hours.
Oh, he doesn't realize that he's going the wrong way because he's trying to like close Harry's nose so he doesn't snore. So he's looking over at Harry.
Yeah, he's like trying to mess with Harry. And then, so yeah, he goes the wrong way. And then they wake up, or Harry wakes up, and they're like, "Oh, I thought the Rocky Mountains would be like a little bit more rocky." It's literally like flat ground.
It's like farmland.
And then how do they figure out that they went the wrong way?
Well, there's no mountains, and it's not cold.
Yeah. And then Harry gets really mad at Lloyd, and then they like have a friendship breakup. And then he's like, I'm gonna walk home. And then he starts walking home. And then there's like sad music. But then Lloyd like pulls up with like a bike.
A really terrible bike.
Like a really small, like it's like a motorized bike or something. Like I don't know exactly what it is. And it's like he like pulls up and he's like, Harry, I'm still going to Aspen. There's room for one more. Like, you in? And then Harry's like, where'd you get this bike? And then Lloyd's like, I traded the dog van for it from a kid back in the town back there. And then Harry's like, when I think you, like, he's like, you go and do something dumb. And when I think you can't get any dumber.
You do something
You
like
redeem
this.
yourself.
Totally redeem yourself.
And then he gets on the bike and then they ride over to Aspen on this little bike. And
they're going real slow, so like a tractor trailer bypasses them.
Yeah. And then they kind of hit Aspen and it's like really cold, and then they're like their mucus is freezing, like it's coming out of their nose, and then Harry's like, I need to pee, like pull over, and then Lloyd's like, no, just
go, man.
And then he pees, and then
ooh, that's warm.
Lloyd's like, ooh, that's warm, and that was literally so vile and disgusting. And then they make it to Aspen, but they have nowhere to stay, so they're just like near this like fire pit that's lit on fire, and they're trying to warm their hands, and Harry's like, my hands are freezing. And then Lloyd's like, oh, you want my extra pair of gloves? And he has these mittens on. He takes them off, and underneath the mittens are gloves. And then Harry's like, you had extra gloves the whole time? And then Harry's like,
yeah.
Or no,
Lloyd's
Lloyd's like, yeah, dude, it's the Rockies. Cold. And then they get into a fight, and then Harry's like, I'm going to throw this briefcase into the ocean. This is so stupid.
The pond.
Not
the ocean.
And then he
throws
the suitcase, and I guess it opens, and then they see all the cash.
Yeah.
And then they're super excited, and they're like, we're going to return all this to her. She's going to be so happy, but we'll just borrow a little bit of it so we can stay somewhere.
Yeah, like someplace reasonable.
Some reasonable place. And then it's like this really expensive hotel that like celebrities stay at. And then they pull up, like they go out and like they buy a Ferrari or I don't even know, some fancy car, and then they're buying all these things. They bought all these clothes. They're tipping every single like butler and like valet person like $100 each, and the money is very obviously fake money. Like it does not look anything real at all.
It's Monopoly money.
Yeah. So yeah, they're just kind of rolling in the dough, and then they see in the paper, they see Mary, and they see that she's like hosting like some sort of dinner for the conservation of Aspen or something, and
for animal stuff.
Oh my god, this is our chance. And then
but Lloyd is having the hardest time reading.
Yeah, Lloyd can't read apparently. Like, he couldn't even read the word the.
The. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and it's funny because Lloyd's having trouble reading, but then Harry like reads all the hard words, like easily. But anyway, after they realize like this dinner is coming up tomorrow, there's like a whole makeover montage scene where like they're trying to get the boys ready. And they're going through, like, suits, and they're getting their nails done, and they're getting, like, their beard shaved.
Specifically, their toenails done.
Yeah. And they have to use, like, a hacksaw or, like, a buzz saw to cut Lloyd's toenails. And then, they're getting their beard cut, and then Lloyd, like, does, like, a fake, like, neck cut prank with ketchup. And then
the barber faints.
Yeah, he faints. And then there's, like, a really weird scene where Harry's getting a massage, but then he whispers in the girl's ear, and then in the next scene, it's the girl getting the massage, and then Harry dressed in the maid outfit, like, massaging the girl, and it was so random. It didn't even make sense. I don't even know why they had that in there. It's so weird. Oh, they're, like, trying to get suits, and they're wearing, like, they try on all these nice suits, and then they try on this hideous orange suit, and then...
Hideous. It's beautiful.
And then Harry's like, that's the one. And then, they also get their hair done. It looks really nice. And then they look at each other like, nah. And then they, like, mess up their hair. Yeah. And then it's the night of the dinner, and they're at the bar, and they're talking, and they're trying to, like Harry's trying to hype up Lloyd to go talk to Mary. But, like, Lloyd can't do it. He chickens out. So then he gets Harry to go talk to her. It's, like, weird because it's just a weird scene. Like, I don't know why she keeps talking to him, because they're looking at these owls. The whole point of the dinner was that they were able to, like, get 2 owls, and they're gonna be able to repopulate the snowy owl population or something like that.
Yeah.
So they're looking at these owls, and I don't remember, but I think the joke was that Harry comes up to her and is like, oh, those are some nice hooters.
Yep.
And then she's like, excuse me?
What are you talking about?
And he's like, oh,
owls.
Nice owls. And she's like, oh, ha ha ha. And then, like, for some reason she keeps talking to him, even though he literally looks insane. He's wearing, like, this ugly-ass suit, and he has the worst hair I've ever seen in my life. Like, I don't understand why she didn't, like, leave. And then, so they're talking, and I guess, like, she's still talking to him.
For some reason, I don't know.
He's trying to, like, hype up Lloyd, but, like, she's
not
letting him talk. And then, for some reason, her stepmother comes up to her and is like, you need to go on a date with this man. It was so weird. I was so confused why she did that. And it's weird because we find out later she's literally married to someone else, so why is, like, her husband's being held for ransom? And the stepmother knows that. So, like, why is she trying to set this girl up with a man? Like, some random person. It's so weird. Anyway, so she forces her stepdaughter into, like, a date with this man at, like, the next day at, like, 10 or something like that. Where they're gonna go skiing.
Yeah, they're gonna go skiing.
It's so weird. I don't even understand. That scene made no sense. And then, so Harry goes back, and he tells Lloyd, oh, like, I got you a date, but really, he's gonna go on a date with her.
He fibs a little bit.
Yeah, he lies. And so then it's the next day, and,
hold on.
Oh.
Lloyd all celebrates because he's all happy.
Oh, right.
So he takes, like, a wine bottle or whatever, opens it up. Champagne. Opens it up, and the cork goes right into an owl.
And it kills the owl. And then...
And Lloyd goes, boy, this party really died.
And then they leave. And then it's funny because in the next scene, it's like the uncle, or I don't even know who he is.
I don't know.
The ransom guy, he's like, oh my god, they were trying to send a message. These guys are good.
We killed their board. They care about I can't talk. You say it.
I don't even know what you're trying to say, but...
They killed our bird. No.
Yeah, just don't even try. Anyway.
I'm going to do it one more time.
Okay.
We killed their bird, and they killed our bird. I did it. 3rd time's a charm.
Yeah, so basically, he thinks that they're, like, really high-skilled, like, feds, or... I don't even know. It's so random.
They're really good. And you're like, no, they're not. They're just dumb.
When in reality, they're literally just idiots. But, yeah, so... After that, it's, like, they're at the hotel trying to, like, get ready, get, like, Lloyd pepped up and ready to, like, go on this date at 10 a.m. at a bar.
The lobby bar.
And then Harry's like, oh, well, since you're going to be out, I'm going to go hit the slopes. And then he's wearing this ridiculously tight, like, skin-tight suit. And it's just a really ugly suit. But anyway. So then Lloyd goes down for his date, and then Harry meets Mary at the bar. Or the
slopes.
The slopes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go skiing, but then he licks, like, they're going up the thing, the ski lift, and then he, like, licks the pole because there's frost on it, and then his tongue gets stuck to the pole. Typical. And, oh, there's, like, a funny scene where he's like, oh, so, like, why haven't you been on the slopes? And she's like, oh, there's been family problems. I won't bore you with that. And he's like, thanks. Anyway, so then he keeps, like, going around and around on the ski lift, and, like, he's stuck. But then she ends up, like, helping him and, like, pulling his tongue off, and it's kind of like a gross scene where his tongue, like, stretches, and it looks very fake. The special effects are not realistic at all, but it doesn't need to be realistic because it's a comedy. And then for some reason she, like, thinks it's funny, and then they, like, next scene they're making a snowman for some reason. Like, no logic is followed in this movie.
First off, why is she, like, hanging out with him in the first place?
I don't know why she's entertaining this. Why didn't she just leave?
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand. Like...
She's a complete idiot.
She's literally an adult woman, and her stepmother's like, go on a date with this weird random man we just saw. And she's like, okay! It's like, what the fuck? Anyway. So, it's funny, because they're building a snowman, and she hands Harry, like, 2 pieces of coal and a carrot, and then he makes, like, a penis and ball sack on snowman. And then she, like, turns around, and she's like, oh, you silly goose, haha, and then moves it. And then they, like, have a laugh about it. And then the next scene, they're, like, walking, and she, like, throws snow on him, and he, like, gets mad, and, like, throws a snowball at her face really hard, and then she throws a snowball back at his face really hard, and then he, like, tackles her to the ground and, like, shoves her face in the snow repeatedly, and she, like, when it's over, she, like, looks up, and she, like, looks at him, and she's like, and, like, starts laughing. I was like, what the actual hell? This man just assaulted you and put your face in the ground.
He's all, like, ready. He's got his fists up, ready to fight.
And she's like, oh my god, that's so charming. And I was like, what the... Anyway, so... Is that, like, the end of it? I forget. Or he's driving her back, and she's like, oh my god, I had a really good time. This is just what I needed. Like, let's go out to dinner, pick me up at 7:45. And he's like, no, I have some things to do. More like 7:45. And then, which is 7:45. And she's like, you're so funny. And then she leaves. And then he's like, ugh. And then, while this was happening, Lloyd was at this, he goes down to the lobby bar, and it's, like, not even open yet. And he's like...
Also, he's in a ridiculous getup.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm here to meet someone. Can I wait by the bar? And the bartender's like, absolutely. So then he waits by the bar, and he's drinking, like, he's already drunk 2 beers. And he's like, bartender, what's the time? And the bartender's like, 1 p.m. And then Lloyd's like, yeah, that's what I have too. And then he was like, the bartender was like, oh, when you were supposed to meet her? And he's like, 10 a.m. She's a few hours late. You know how girls are, like, when they want, like, when they're excited, they want everything to be perfect. And then the bartender, like, feels bad for him, so he gives him a beer. And then this girl sits down from before, the girl that Harry was talking to at the gas station. And she sits down, she starts rambling about her ex-boyfriend and how, like, he's so clumsy. And then Lloyd's like, I literally do not care. And then he, like, I guess he had enough, and he's literally like, to the bartender, he's like, do you know of a Mary Swanson? And the bartender's like, yeah, I do.
She comes in here all the time.
All the time. And then Lloyd grabs him, and he's like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, for dinner. And then he's like, do you know where she lives? And the bartender's like, yeah, she lives on this address, like, the biggest house on this street. And then Lloyd's like, thanks. And then he gets up and leaves, and he goes, and then they see, after Harry drops off Mary.
You missed my favorite part.
Oh.
Where he begins to walk out, he sees a newspaper, man walks on moon. It's like, we did it! We landed on the moon! And it's so many years after the fact. But anyway, back to what you were saying.
Yeah, so so he sees that Harry dropped off Mary, and then he knows what's going on.
And he almost vomits too.
Yeah, and then it cuts back to, like, the hotel, and they're both back, and then Lloyd is, like, talking to Harry. He's like, she didn't show, and then Harry's, like, going overboard. He's like, I hate when women do that. It's so messed up. She was so into you. She's the one who asked you on the date. Meantime, he was the one that... So... And then Lloyd knows that, so then Harry leaves, and he's like, oh, maybe she meant 10 p.m., not 10 a.m., and then Lloyd's like, yeah, I just assumed she was a raging alcoholic, and then he's like, I don't know why I was in emotional turmoil all day, and then Harry's like, well, since you're gonna be busy with that, I'm gonna go out and, like, catch a film. Really, he's gonna go on the date with Mary, and Lloyd knows that, so then he's like, hey, Harry, why don't we have a celebratory good luck toast? And he, like, pours tea and then pours, like, a whole bottle of laxatives into Harry's mug. And then Harry, like, downs it. And he's like, this is delicious. And then it cuts to, like, him going to pick up Mary. And, like, she's like, oh, yeah, like, I just need to, I'm almost ready. Like, give me a minute. Make yourself at home. And then he's like, oh, frick, I have to poop. And then he goes into the bathroom and then, like, shits his brains out.
Violently.
It's very disgusting. His legs are, like, shaking and, like, lifted in the air, and there's, like, noises. And the faces he makes, he's in pain. And then Mary's like, oh, like, what are you doing? Are you in the bathroom? And he's like, yes. And she's like, oh, well, like, I hope you're not using a toilet. It doesn't flush. And then he's like,
uh-oh.
And then, like, he's literally, like, ripping the toilet bowl out of the floor to, like, dump it out of the window because it's, like, really gross. But then in that scene, Lloyd comes up and knocks on the door, and Mary's like, "Oh, hello," and Lloyd's like, "Do you remember me?" And she's like, "Not really."
Nope, not at all.
And then he's like, "Providence, I drove you to the airport." And then she's like, "Oh my God, Lloyd!" And he's like, "You remember my name?" And he's like, "Oh, like, I have your briefcase. You left it. It's in my hotel room. Like, if you want to come hop on my bike, we can go back to get it." And she's like, "You have my briefcase?" And she's like, "Yeah, like, I hate when I lose my luggage. So I couldn't, like, leave it there." And then Mary's like, "Oh, like, Harry, like, sorry, I have to go. It's an emergency." And they go back with Lloyd to get the suitcase. And then she's so excited. She's like, "You really, like, drove all this way just to give me my suitcase?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then there's, like, this scene where it's, like, he's, like, talking passionately. He's like, "I'm crazy about you. Like, I've never felt like this about anyone. As soon as I saw you, I just knew. I really want to have sex with you, blah, blah, blah." And then it turns out he's just talking to, like, himself.
Yeah.
And then she comes out of the bathroom and she's like, "Were you talking to someone?" He's like, And it's like his monologue is really, like, smooth. And as soon as she comes out and, like, looks at him, he's like,
I want to have sex with a schoolboy.
And then she's like, "What? I think I should leave." And he's like, "No, what I meant is, I like you. What are the chances you and me would get together?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Not good." And then he's like, "What are my odds?"
Just give it to me straight.
1 in 100. She's like,
more like 1 in a million.
Yeah, and he's like,
so
I have a
I have a chance.
And then someone knocks at the door. It's the ransom guy. And
Lloyd's like, "Sorry, we have enough towels."
Yeah, and then the guy's like, "No, you're gonna let me in." And points a gun at him. And then they let him in.
Oh, wait, hold on. And he's like, "Yeah, I kidnapped her husband." And he's like, "What was that 1 in a million talk?"
Yeah, that was funny. And then, so the guy, like, holds him at gunpoint. And then Harry's on his way back from the date to go back to the hotel. And he's like, "Hey, Harry, I'm home." And then there's, like, a gun pointed at him. And they're all, like, tied up on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, he's like, "Open the briefcase." And then inside the briefcase is just a bunch of, like, papers of IOUs. And then the guy's like, "What is this?" And then Lloyd's like, "Oh, see, these are IOUs. They're just as good as money. Look, this one, IOU, $275,000. That was for the car. I would hold on to this one."
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then the guy's, like, so pissed. And he's like, so he ties him up. I guess he's on the phone with, like, I don't even know.
Like, he wants to get, like, a plane out of
he wants to escape, I guess.
Yeah.
And then that's when Harry comes in, and then he ties him up, and then he's like, "Which one of you guys am I gonna shoot?" And then Harry's like, "No, shoot me." And then Lloyd was like, "No, shoot me." Oh, no, wait. They have an argument about, like, cheating and blah, blah, blah. Not important. And then Harry's like, "Just shoot me." And then the guy
was like, "Yeah, shoot him."
And he shoots him twice. And then he, like, falls into bed. And then Lloyd's like, "Oh my God, you shot my best friend." And then, like, Harry rises up from the dead with a gun and then shoots the ransom guy, but he misses every shot. And then Lloyd's like, "Oh my God, you're alive. And you're a horrible shot." And then the ransom guy's like,
"What's going on?"
What? And then the FBI break down the door and arrest him.
Yep. It's like, "Hands up." And Harry puts his hands up. "Not you," the FBI says.
Yeah, and then turns out the FBI gave Harry a bulletproof vest and a gun because they were trying to capture the ransom guy.
Yeah, before Harry was going up to the hotel, he was stopped.
And then Lloyd was like, "Well, what if he shot you in the face?" And then the FBI was like, "That was a risk we're willing to take." And then Harry's like, "What the heck?" And then the next scene is, like,
them outside
with the crime scene, and then the FBI are, like, trying to, like, they're interviewing. Oh, and it turns out that woman at the gas station and the girl who was talking to Lloyd at the bar was an FBI agent.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, they're apparently tracking them for a while, and they couldn't have done it without the idiots. And then Mary's husband is like, they're reunited, and then Mary's like, I want to introduce you to a really gentle and sweet man. And then Lloyd has, like, this vision where he shoots the husband, like, 18 times.
It's like, die!
And then Mary's like, Lloyd, I want you to meet my husband. And then they meet, and then he, like, grips his hand really tight and he won't let it go. And then they end up leaving. And the next scene is Lloyd and Harry walking with just their duffel bag on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And they're like, I don't know when we'll get our next big break. And then up pulls, like, a bus, and it's, like, filled with all these girls in bikinis because they're on a bikini tour of the U.S. I don't even know if that's a real thing. And they're like,
probably. Hey, boys, we're looking for 2 boys to oil us up before every single tour. And then the guys are like, well, there's a town like 5 miles that way. You could probably find someone there. And then the girls are like, okay. What? And then they pack up and then they drive away. And then Lloyd's like, wait, what have we done? Do you realize what you just did?
And then he
runs off to the bus again to stop them.
And then they stop, and then they open the doors, and he's like, there's a town, it's the other way, oh my god. And then the girls are really like, what the fuck? And then,
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, and then they get up and drive away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's Lloyd and Harry walking, and they're like, we'll get our big break soon. And then that's the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I did not really like this movie.
What?
I'm probably gonna rate it a 1 star.
What?
Let me. Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
What? How dare you?
I didn't really. It was like maybe like a funny, but it wasn't funny.
Well, now my confidence is shot.
Sorry. But it's true. It was. I think maybe if I was younger, it would be funnier.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense because my mom and dad took my mom's younger sister to go see this movie when she was like, I don't know, 10 or something. Probably not the best thing to do, but she loved it and laughed the entire time. So
yeah, I think that I'm too old for this movie to find it funny. I mostly just found it really awkward, painful to watch, and I think it didn't help that the 2 guys were like kind of like horrible people. So I didn't like it. But it's funny. Okay, this is funny because I'm on Letterboxd right now, and the movie got a 3.3. But there's a lot of 5-star reviews.
Maybe you're just in the minority here.
No, because then there's a review that says half star, and then it says, I look around at all the 4 and 5-star reviews, and I feel like I'm on a different planet.
Okay, maybe not.
Interesting.
Like, for one, this movie obviously isn't good in the sense of being a good movie. It's just something to laugh at sometimes.
Yeah, it's like very, like, most of the humor I feel like is physical humor, which I find is funny when you're younger. More funny when you're younger, I think.
I guess so. Because your brain's like, what are these words? I don't know. Ha, funny man slaps other person. Makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so this review says, for a movie so stupid and full of childish and gross out humor, there's sure something oddly wholesome about it. Plus, it is genuinely fucking hilarious. And for all his excellent dramatic roles, this still might be Jeff Daniels' best performance simply because of how he completely disappears into the role. It's hard to believe he's the same guy from the newsroom. I'm assuming that's Harry.
Yeah. Jeff Daniels is a good actor. Yeah, so the fact that he does this is hilarious.
Yeah, I liked Harry more than I liked Lloyd.
Because he's just being Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I kind of actually hated Lloyd most of the time. Yeah, this one says, take 4 shots, then watch this movie. You'll like it. Of course, I mean tequila, not bullets, you dumbass. Oh, apparently Lloyd was in Batman?
He was the Riddler in Val Kilmer's Batman.
Oh. Someone said, I hope the sound designer for the toilet scene is happy and living their best life. Someone said, Harry pelting Mary with a snowball, tackling her down a hill and forcefully pushing her head into the snow has me in stitches every time. See, that was not funny for me. I was just like, I felt so bad for Mary. I was like, why is she still with this guy? I hope she leaves.
See, you're empathetic. I'm not.
Yeah, I guess not.
It seems. Because I just started laughing when he just wound up and threw it directly in her face from, like, 1 foot.
Oh, someone gave it 2 stars and said, of course they're from Rhode Island. I guess it's a dig at Rhode Island. I didn't know Rhode Island was like that. Okay, this one says, if I had to pick my favorite comedy, it would be this. Dumb and Dumber is one of the most quotable, absurdly hilarious comedies of all time. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels are iconic as the lead comic duo. Someone rated it 2 stars and said, why was his shirt so watery, though? I think it was watery because he had a whole bottle of laxatives. Mostly the reviews are just, like, quotes from the movie.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I do anyway.
Like, one of them is 4.5 stars, and it said, we landed on the moon! Okay. I feel like this is accurate review. It said, this was one of my favorite comedies as a kid, and although it absolutely does not hit the same after you've hit puberty, it is still an impressive, precise, broad comedy with lots of standout moments. The screenplay structure is pretty impeccable, as tons of throwaway details end up holding surprising narrative significance by the conclusion, and so many of the stupid jokes just work. Okay, never mind. I don't really agree with this review. I only agree with the part that it doesn't hit the same after puberty. Someone said, I'm sorry, I know this is a cult movie and stuff, but it wasn't even that funny. The last bit improved a little, but not much. Yeah, I agree with that. Oh, someone said, if you dislike in 2022, it's fully valid. But you had to be there in the 90s when this came out. That's all I have to say.
You know, I can agree with.
I think that's probably true. Someone said, am I just too old for this? I think that's me.
Probably. Because it's very childish,
I think I'm too old for this. I think the part that I disliked the most was, like, how messed up they were to the women in the show. I think that's probably why I didn't like it, if I'm being honest. Classic that I never loved. It had its moments and Carrey and Daniels play their parts so well, but the last hour or so absolutely drags. I didn't think it dragged. No. I thought, like, it was pretty fast-paced. Mm-hmm. I just didn't think it was funny, but if you think it's funny, I think it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone said, I don't know, since I don't like it, I'm reading mostly the bad reviews. I'm very biased. So it said, I should start off by saying that most of the gags in this are very far from my sense of humor. There's a lot of scatological stuff. It doesn't do anything for me. I ended up skipping through a few scenes just because it made me cringe more than anything. That's true. I cringed a lot in this movie. I also found it way too long. There's a point where I felt like I was just gearing up for climax mode and it just kept going and going. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels are great actors, and I think they have a nice chemistry and occasionally moments that appealed to my own sense of humor, mainly the old school slapstick bits and the occasional funny line. There were some jokes that I thought were funny, but...
Which ones? Name all of them.
The one that I liked was the one where he just goes, I like you. I don't know why, I just like that one.
I like go a lot.
I like go a lot. I like go a lot. I thought that was funny. And that was probably it.
That's fantastic. So, like, 2 hours and
did I laugh at anything?
The 7:45 joke. It took you a second because, like...
Oh, yeah, that was kind of clever. I did kind of like that one. That was... Yeah. Someone said, half star. Basically, they're really stupid and it's meant to be funny, but it's not. That's how I feel. Okay, let me read a good review.
1 out of the 28.
Someone said, I'm ashamed to admit that I hadn't watched this movie until today. I've heard so many references from this film over the years and never knew what they were referencing. Me. I was so confused. Now that I've seen it, I can't stop giggling to myself because I have one line stuck in my head repeating over and over, and it's not becoming any less funny. The quote is, her head fell off. Oh, that was kind of funny, I do think. She was really old. That was funny. Someone said, I have no idea why I watched this, but it turned out to be exactly what I needed. Fell off the jetway again.
That's my favorite one. Fell off the jetway again. Because he's done it before?
Yep, that's... interesting. And someone said, a little overlong, but it made me laugh pretty fucking hard a couple times, and the soundtrack was fucking great. Yeah, I think it seems like people... Oh, someone said 2.5 stars.
That was it.
What it to you?
And then someone said 4 stars and said, I liked it a lot. Oh, that's reference. I like you a lot. Yep. I like you a lot. Wait, do it.
I like you a lot.
I like you a lot. Reviews are just quotes, famous quotes. Like, extra gloves? You had a pair of extra gloves this whole time? Yeah, we're in the Rockies.
Honestly, that's pretty much what me and my family do with this movie. We just quote it.
I think that's probably why.
This movie is like a stand-up routine put into a film. Because they're just a bunch of good one-liners all over the place. Well, to you, it's terrible one-liners all over the place.
I didn't really, like, it didn't hit. I think I'm too old for this movie. I think that's what it is. I'm too old for this.
Does that make me a child still?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yes!
Pretty much. Okay, I'm gonna rate this 1 star.
That's rude.
My review, what should I write?
I didn't like it a lot.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Nice.
Alright, that concludes the review section.
Review section is over. I didn't do the song.
Oh, I didn't announce it. That's why.
Review time, it's over. Anyway.
Yeah, your turn.
Now it's time for fun facts. Facts that are fun. The fun facts section. Fun facts. So Jim Carrey actually has a chipped tooth, and he used it in this movie. So that's neat, because that thing right there in front of his face, it's real. He usually has a cap in.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know he had a chipped tooth in real life.
Mm-hmm. Also, at the very end, the script itself, they said that Harry and Lloyd should have gone on to the bus with the bikini people. But Jim Carrey was like, no, these guys are too stupid to do that.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that. And I think it works better.
I think it works better, too.
Even though you hate the movie. Yeah. Also, Seabass is played by an actual hockey player.
Who's Seabass?
The trucker.
Oh. Oh.
Apparently, the line about the moon landing wasn't scripted, but Jim Carrey did it on the spot.
Oh, so it's improv.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Jeff Daniels once joked that the toilet scene is his Oscar clip. The rat poison pills were just Smarties.
Oh.
So he wouldn't have died. Steve Martin and Martin Short both turned down the role of Lloyd. Steve Martin and Martin Short are actually very good friends.
Wait, so Jim Carrey wasn't supposed to be Lloyd?
Not at first, no.
Interesting.
Jeff Daniels reportedly earned the role of Harry after the Farley brothers, the people who directed the movie, remembered him from a Pepto-Bismol commercial.
What the heck?
Which is ironic because he has the laxative.
Oh. Another thing is, why did the hotel have a bottle of laxatives on hand? That's what I want to know. Wait, that's why you did the commercial thing with the thing.
I guess so, but that was Lloyd. That was Jim Carrey.
Maybe it was to reference that.
I guess so. Interesting.
Nicolas
Nicolas Cage and Gary Oldman were the original choices to play Harry and Lloyd.
Wow, that doesn't seem right.
I'm going to end it on that one because that just sounds wrong.
Yeah, it does.
Nicolas Cage could do it, especially now because he's crazy. But Gary Oldman, he was Commissioner Gordon in The Dark Knight. And he's like an amazing actor. I mean, Jeff Daniels is too, but like still you think of Gary Oldman, you're like, that guy, he's good.
Maybe that would have added to the comedy of it, though.
Maybe.
I feel like he doesn't play roles like that ever, so it could have been cool for him, but never happened. And instead we got this. So.
A movie you hate.
Yeah, I think maybe it was a product of its time.
See, now I'm scared to show you Ace Ventura. Because
No.
that has Jim Carrey.
We'll see. Maybe Jim Carrey can redeem himself in my eyes, but...
Also, actually, no.
Is it a comedy?
Liar, yeah, Liar Liar is a good Jim Carrey movie.
Okay. I'll watch anything you show me. I don't... Even if I hate it. I mean, I still, like, had a good time watching it. I just didn't think it was that good. But it was entertaining, but not, like, in the way that it wanted it to be. Like, it wanted to be entertaining in the way that, like, I was genuinely laughing, but it was entertaining. I was, wow, this is a really bad movie. It's entertaining me. You know what I mean?
No. I mean, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say no because I want to be different. Anyway.
Anyway. But, yeah, no. I'll watch any movie. And I'll give you my honest feedback.
That's good. Honesty is the best policy.
Don't be scared.
I'm scared already.
No. Don't worry. It'll be fine.
Don't worry.
It provides content. We have to be opposing.
Happy.
We can't all agree.
That's true.
Otherwise, this podcast would be lame.
I mean, I'm not going to make the joke.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be made.
People can see it already.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to end it here. Good night.
Please watch our podcast or listen to please.
Give us views. We need money.
We're doing it only for the money.
Yeah.
We want the cash.
Exactly.
We want to open up a briefcase and go, I owe you nothing.
I would love to find a briefcase of there must have been a lot of money in that briefcase because that car
but I forget.
was $275,000. So there had to be more than that in that briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night.
We'll see you in the next...
Good morning, in case you're watching this in the morning.
Yeah, goodbye, everybody.
Bye, forever.
We will see you in the next episode next time.
Yeah, hopefully next week, unlike the last week, which has nothing.
Yeah, we skipped that week because I was busy. But...
How dare you?
I know, sorry. What movie are we watching next?
I don't know.
Okay, well, you'll find out next week then. Bye.
Bye.